In this video I'm gonna compare the Lumix GX9 and the Sony A7C cameras. Hi guys, my name is Matti Sulanto and I'm a photographer. And in this video I'm going to compare the Lumix GX9 and the Sony A7C cameras. The reason I'm not holding the Sony in this hand is that the Sony is on a tripod right there filming me. But you can see both cameras side by side here, and as you can see they have very similar form factor and that same fake rangefinder look. So I think they just beg for a comparison. And I also happen to have very equivalent lenses for both cameras. For the Lumix I have the Leica 25mm f1.4, and for the Sony I have the Sony G50mm f2.5. They are not exactly equivalent lenses, but they are close enough and we are not splitting hairs in this comparison. However, I want to point out that this is not a totally fair comparison for a couple of reasons. One reason is that this GX9 is older than the A7C. The GX9 came out in February 2018 and the A7C came out in September 2020. So there is about 2.5 years difference. And another reason is that the GX9 is a lot cheaper camera, partly because it's older and you tend to get older cameras for better prices, and partly because it was a cheaper camera in the beginning when it came out. And one more thing, remember that this is only one comparison and only one opinion. If you don't like the outcome, make your own comparison and pick the features that you think are important and ignore the features that you think are not important. And now let's finally get started. Number one, the size, weight and build quality. Both cameras have very solid build, and also the size is very similar, so I can't say which one is better or worse. However, the Lumix with this lens is about 30 grams lighter than the Sony with that lens. So I'm gonna give 1 point to the Lumix in this category because it is that tiny bit lighter. Of course, 30 grams is almost nothing, but because the Lumix is lighter, I'm gonna give 1 point to that. Number two, the ergonomics. Both cameras have reasonably good ergonomics, not the best, but reasonably good anyway, and both cameras are a pleasure to use. However, the Lumix has two proper dials, one for your thumb, one for your forefinger, and the Sony only has one dial that you operate with your thumb. There is one dial at the back of the camera, but it's not very nice to use and I don't regard that as a proper command dial. And also in general, the Lumix has a little bit nicer control layout in my opinion. So I'm gonna give 1 more point to the Lumix and it wins this category, but the difference is not big, and like I said, both cameras are nice to use. This Lumix is just that tiny bit better in this category. Number three, features. And in this category I'm talking about the photography related features. And both cameras have a really good feature set and I don't think you are going to miss much with either camera. However, the Lumix has some features that the Sony does not have. First of all, the Lumix has a RAW developer in camera, and the Lumix has a double exposure feature which can be a lot of fun, and also the Lumix has much user-friendly JPEG settings. You can very easily customize your own JPEGs if you like. You can customize your JPEGs with the Sony too very extensively, but it's not very user-friendly and therefore the Lumix is much better there. It's so easy to customize your JPEGs and get the output or look you want with the Lumix. So again, in this category, I'm gonna give 1 point to the Lumix because it has slightly better photography features than the Sony. And just in case you haven't heard already, I'm organizing a workshop here in Helsinki in August 2022 with my friend Peter Forsgaard. I'll put a link down below so you can check it out and sign up as soon as possible because I promise you it's gonna be good, and I'd love to see you here in Helsinki in August 2022. Number 4, the lenses. And I'm talking about these 2 lenses that I have on both cameras. I'm also going to say a couple of words about the lens lineups in general, but let's first look at these 2 lenses. And which lens is better? If we only look at the sharpness, then the Sony lens wins hands down because it's so really sharp. This Leica is more traditional, it's a little bit soft, wide open, but it sharpens up nicely when you stop down just a little bit. So it has that vintage lens double character, maybe wide open, slightly soft, very sharp, stop down, and you can use that to your advantage if you are into that kind of stuff and if you know how to use it. Most people probably prefer sharp lens because most people only understand sharpness and that's everything. But there are still photographers who look at the final outcome, does it look pretty or not, and you can make really pretty pictures with this Leica lens too. But when we look at the lens lineups for both systems, then there is a slight edge for the Sony in my opinion, because even though the Micro Four Thirds lineup is really huge, the Sony lineup is even better. There are so many native Sony lenses, then there are Sigma lenses, Tamron lenses, and so many other third-party lenses for Sony cameras. And at the moment I have a feeling, not a fact, just a feeling that more new lenses are coming for the Sony than for Micro Four Thirds right now at the moment. But again, like I said, the lens lineup for the Lumix is also huge, and I think if you can't find the lens that you want for either camera, then there's something wrong with you. But I'm going to give 1 point to the Sony here because the lens lineup is better in my opinion. Number 5, autofocus. Both cameras have a really good single autofocus performance, very fast and accurate. But as soon as we turn on focus tracking or turn on the continuous autofocus, then the Sony wins hands down. It's just so much better that there is really no competition here. So I'm going to give 1 point to the Sony in this autofocus category. Number 6, video. Both cameras have excellent 4K video quality. However, the Lumix has a severe crop in 4K mode because it doesn't use the full sensor, it uses the actual pixels. And because of that, the effective sensor size is really small. And the Sony instead has no crop up to 25 frames per second. And it also has a microphone input, which I think is pretty much a must if you are going to shoot any kind of video. And also the Sony has the flippy screen, which is also a must if you are a YouTuber, for example. And also because the Sony sensor is much bigger to begin with and there is no crop, the low light performance is a lot better than on the Lumix. So 1 more point to the Sony in this video category. Number 7, battery life. And here the numbers are pretty clear. The SIPA number for the Lumix is 260 and the same number for the Sony is 740. And that is pretty much the real life experience too. The Sony battery seems to last forever and the Lumix battery doesn't seem to last forever. I mean, you pretty much have to take a spare battery with you if you're a Lumix shooter, if you intend to shoot for more than 1 or 2 hours. With the Sony, you can easily shoot 1 day with 1 battery. Unless you shoot a lot of video, then you better have a spare also with the Sony. But the point goes to the Sony in this category because the battery life is superb compared to the Lumix battery life. Number 8, the image quality. Both cameras have a really good image quality and good enough for most normal shooting situations or purposes. However, it is just a fact that the big sensor in the Sony is better when we really start examining the absolute image quality. Better low light performance, better signal to noise ratio, better dynamic range, and everything is better. Whether that matters to you, it's completely another question, but in absolute terms, the image quality on the Sony is better. There is no escaping that, it's just a fact. But like I said, both cameras are really capable and you can get excellent images on both cameras. But I had to give a point to the Sony in this category because it is better. Number 9, the price. And here there's no competition really or no contest. The Lumix is the cheaper of the two. However, which one is better value? I think it's totally up to you. How much are you willing to pay for certain features or for the better image quality? It's totally up to you and I can't decide that. If you're a video shooter, then I think the Sony is definitely the better camera. But if you're a photographer, then it's not that easy. The Lumix is a lot cheaper camera, and is the Sony worth the price, worth the extra price for you as a photographer? I think it's up to you. But I have to give 1 point to the Lumix in this category because it clearly is the cheaper of the two and by a very good margin too. So the final score is here, and as you can see, it was pretty even comparison or tough competition, however you want to put it. And if you are not a video shooter and if you leave out the video category, then the score is even. And if you ask me which camera would I rather pick when I go out on a photo walk, for example, I think I first choose a lens and then I choose the camera that fits on the lens. And for example, I don't really think about the image quality that much because my photo walks are pretty informal and the image quality doesn't really matter there. I hope you enjoyed this little comparison, and no matter which camera you have, remember to go out, take pictures, tell stories, and I'll see you in the next video.